The lessons of 1994 and 2018, I think, are going to be the same lessons. In 1994, the House Republicans had been a minority for 40 years. And Joe Gaylord, who was my partner in helping design the 1994 campaign, had been working with me literally for 16 years. We tried to create a majority. When I came in as a freshman in 1978, I won the election, having lost twice. In 1974 with Watergate, and 1976 with Jimmy Carter of Georgia at the head of the ticket while I was running in Georgia as a Republican. And that was a tough year. By 1978, we won. And in December of 1978, Congressman Guy Vanderjack, the chairman of the Congressional Campaign Committee, asked me to form a planning committee to become a majority. We hadn't been a majority for 24 years. And there was no plan to become a majority. And so people ran their own individual races, and as long as they won, they were happy. And it didn't occur to them that being in the minority wasn't good enough. It's important to remember, our effort failed in 1980, 1982, 1984, 1986, 1988, 1990, and 1992. And it didn't fail because we weren't trying. We were trying every 2 years. We were trying to figure out, how do you pull this thing off? Finally, in 1994, it all came together for a variety of reasons, and we won a decisive election. For the first time in 40 years, there was a Republican majority in the House. Even more amazing, in 1996, while Bill Clinton was getting reelected, we kept the Republican majority in the House. Now, why do I say that's even more amazing? Because no Republican House majority had been reelected since 1928. Not in 68 years had the Republicans gotten their act together enough to get reelected. Now, since 1994, the balance of power had changed pretty dramatically. It changed from the Democrats being in total control of the House to, out of the last 24 years, 20 of them have had a Republican majority and only 4 have had a Democratic majority. And I think there are lessons to be learned from that. And that's why I want to just take a minute and talk about 1994 and 2018. There are rumors, analytically, that a lot of consultants think you can win the 2018 campaign one district at a time, that you can magically focus on this candidate or this campaign or whatever. I wanted to share with you as a lesson of history that I personally believe that that is baloney, and that Joe Gaylord, who was the great professional who helped design the 1994 campaign, agrees with me entirely. That is baloney. You live in a world where there's going to be a national conversation. You know that because if the president tweets, he's tweeting in all 435 congressional seats. You know that because when Rush Limbaugh is on the air or if Sean Hannity's on the air, they're in all 435 congressional seats. So is MSNBC and CNN. And so we're going to have a national conversation. The House Republicans, if they want to remain a majority, have to win that conversation. Margaret Thatcher had a great rule. Prime Minister Thatcher said, first you win the argument, then you win the vote. Now, because the news media is so bitterly opposed to us, and because 90% of the news media is liberal, Republicans tend to hide from the argument. What made Ronald Reagan amazing was he was a former FDR Democrat who had actually campaigned for Hubert Humphrey and Harry Truman in 1948. He was comfortable talking to the whole country. He wasn't intimidated. What made, frankly, Donald Trump different is that he had been a Democrat, he'd been in New York City, he wasn't a normal Republican, and as you know every day, he doesn't mind taking on the news media. So, as we think about September and October, I just want to draw some lessons from what we did in 1994 that did change history. I mean, the objective fact is, when you shift from 40 years as the Democrats in charge to 20 out of 24 of the Republicans in charge, that's a pretty big change. And I think there's a very grave danger that Republicans are underestimating how hard this year is going to be. There's a grave danger that at least half of the Republicans are demoralized and have already accepted defeat. There's a grave danger that the consultants who don't have a clue how you win a national election are going to spend an enormous amount of money trying to win one district at a time in what I think is frankly virtually hopeless. You first have to win the argument. Then you can win one district at a time, and you win a lot of districts. We picked up 53 seats in 1994. We defeated Chairman Rostenkowski in downtown Chicago. We defeated the Speaker of the House, Tom Foley, in Spokane, Washington. We defeated the Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jack Brooks, in Houston, Texas. We were running a campaign in 432 of the 435 districts, and it was a good thing we did because, frankly, no rational strategist would have targeted Foley or Rostenkowski. Only by running everywhere did we achieve that. So the historical case I want to make, having lived through it, having spent 16 years of my life helping create it, and being able to point to it and just say, this is a fact, guys. We have to win certain key arguments. Now, we can win those arguments. On immigration, for example, the weakest Republican position is 60%. The strongest is 84%. So when the elite media, the liberal media, tries to browbeat us and intimidate us and focus the issues in the most one-sided way, we just have to have the nerve to come back to them and say, I'm against open borders. Are you for open borders? I think we need to have enforcement. That means you need ICE. Do you think we need to have enforcement? I don't think criminals should be protected by city governments and state governments. Do you think criminals should be protected? 84% of the country believes that sanctuary cities increase the crime rate. Now, that should be a no-brainer. If you can't win an 84% issue, you're in the wrong business, to paraphrase what Mitch McConnell said about the tax cuts. And McConnell had it right. He said, if we generate prosperity and we can't make that argument, we're in the wrong business. And Senator McConnell is exactly right. He's been doing a great job defending ICE and standing up on the issue of immigration. He's doing a great job on the economy and explaining it, just as he's done a great job on the whole question of judgeships. But I would say to every person involved in the House Republican campaign, every person at the Republican National Committee and the National Congressional Campaign Committee, and every person in the White House who's involved in this, we had better be prepared to have a very clear-cut choice. And I think the lesson of 1994 is if this is a campaign of choices, so every time the media tries to attack us, we come back with the other side. If they want to talk about children at the border, we want to talk about sanctuary cities, about protecting the Americans, about having the right to control our border. And we want to talk about the Feinstein bill, which has open borders in it, which every single Democrat in the Senate has co-sponsored. That's the kind of choice we want. And so I think there's a real history lesson here, and I wanted to share what I thought were the lessons of history and how you develop this. And I believe we have to have a national campaign. We have to draw a clear choice. And again, this is not a pro or anti-President Trump campaign. This is a pro or anti-campaign based on a set of core values. Do you believe that government-run health care that will cost so much that it will bankrupt the country is the way forward? Or do you believe we should continue going towards better care with more and more solutions that allow people to have better insurance at lower cost and better access to doctors? Clear choice. Do you believe that we ought to have higher regulation and higher taxes, go back to food stamps and dependency? Or do you believe that we ought to have a really clear opportunity to develop more economic growth, more jobs? Do you think it's good that we have the lowest black unemployment in history? Or do you think that's irrelevant? Do you think it's good that we had 4.1% economic growth and are on the path to really growing dramatically? Or do you think that's irrelevant? These are the kind of choices we need to set up, and we need to be prepared at the candidate level and at the party level and in the White House to win these arguments as a matter of principle. I think that's the history lesson of 1994, and that's why I wanted to describe where we are in the context of things I've been involved in my career and where I think we have to end up if we're going to be successful.